I'm Emmy.
And I'm May.
And this is the Female Founders Rise show. And today we are going to talk about how May got her first $1 million from angel investors.
Yes, I'm going to hopefully talk you through my 6 steps if I had to do it all over again.
Your playbook.
So step 1 is prepare. So you need to make sure that you are prepared before you go out and speak to angels. So that is getting the deck sorted, getting the financials, but also don't overthink too much. I definitely spent too long on the deck trying to get it perfect, which you just won't. Just get it to a point where you can get it out, it looks good, you're comfortable with it, but then keep refining it every time that you do get feedback.
How do you know? I mean, obviously we run a fundraising accelerator, but for everyone else who, you know, maybe isn't able to apply for that, how do you know how to create a deck in the first place?
Yeah, there are so many resources with the deck, and actually there are very, very simple steps, like it's the problem, it's the solution, it's the go-to-market strategy. So there's so much resources. I mean,
we can link to one.
Yeah,
we'll link to one.
Link to that. So just follow the standard, and that's honestly enough, especially for angel investors, because again, we'll go on to this, but it's more of a conversation. It's more around finding aligned investors. So I actually never got the deck out. Like Emmy, I don't even think saw my deck, who invested in us. So actually the deck is just an after piece. Like once you've had that conversation, you can then kind of share the deck. The other thing I would say is start a document with the Q&As. So you're obviously, when you're pitching, you're not going to cover everything, and that's okay. So make sure you have all of the other stuff kind of in a Q&A document. So whenever anyone asks you a question, you have the answer prepared. And also when you hear new questions, you can kind of put it in the document.
I do remember I spoke to a founder, and I was so impressed because afterwards she sent me an email with all the questions that I'd asked and answers to them all. And I thought, wow. I mean, do you know, I just sort of invested off the back of that actually, because I was like, you're so efficient, you're so impressive. If you treat every sales conversation like that, then you know you're going to go somewhere. So I think that's a really good one. And also hearing the questions and the objections that people are asking means that you can preempt that before you go into your
Totally. And then you can be like, that's a really great question, and then go off on your answer. The next thing I say is make sure you practice. Practice telling, speaking about your company, talking to your friends and family. I always say the grandma test. Like if your grandma doesn't understand what you do, that's a really big thing, because you need to make it simple enough for anyone to understand. Yeah. You have that. You've been kind of pitched to loads of times, and it's like it goes over your head.
Someone says something like it's like the Airbnb of whatever, or I don't know, like Vic, I've just invested in Hey Savvy, and you basically take a photo of your someone's clothes, and then it will tell you where it's from. And she says it's like the Shazam of fashion. So instantly I'm like, I know what Shazam is, or I know what Spotify is, or I know what Uber is, or Airbnb, and they're doing it in that space. So I think just having a really clear, compelling story and keeping it super simple.
Yeah, exactly.
And not using industry jargon.
Exactly. Simple. I'd actually say more simple the better. And then, like I said, angels, most of my angel investors I met for a coffee, or it was over the phone, or it was over Zoom. So it is quite a casual conversation. It's not a presentation or a formal pitch. So try and kind of practice, again, speaking in a more kind of casual tone. And with one of my angels, I just had one Zoom call with him. I'd never met him before, and he invested £70,000. So
how did you find him?
It was a cold email, I know. And he had luckily just sold his business, so he had some money to invest. And then lastly, I would just say with all of that, there are so many tools that you can use. So DocSend, great tool, because you can kind of track and see who's looking at your deck. I don't know if you have any other tools.
Well, it's interesting. Yesterday on the panel, there was one investor who was actually a VC, so that's different because we're talking about angel now, but he was saying don't send anything via DocSend because anything with a link gets caught in their spam filter. But that was specifically a VC. So I think something like DocSend's great. I would just say, yeah, I think preparing and just being open and knowing that angels are just normal people. You know, they're normal people. They also have, many of them, full-time jobs or caring responsibilities. You know, they don't have any, you know, you can't expect people to get back to you if you send them cold emails. I mean, sometimes people say, gosh, I sent this woman an email and sent her my deck and she didn't get back to me. I was like, well, she's probably busy. And you're cold calling someone. So like you said, like we talked about before, like don't take it personally. It really is a numbers game. Many angel investors are not actively investing, even if they are known to be an angel. Many only invest in particular types of businesses or certain times of the year. So I think one of the things with angel investing is it's not like a VC where they say, this is my thesis, this is who I invest in, and this is the size of checks I write, and I'm open for business. You don't know that with an angel. And like you said, the guy that the cold email, you close a 70K deal, he just sold his business. I bet he wasn't telling people he was an angel investor.
Well, we will get onto that in a minute on how to actually find angel investors. So number one, prepare. Step two is the boring bit, but admin and legal. So EIS.
In the UK, that's EIS and SEIS is a tax. Yeah, it's a tax incentive basically to get investors, to encourage investors to invest in early stage businesses. We all know investing in early stage businesses is risky, and therefore the UK government has something called the EIS and SEIS scheme, where investors get a percentage of their investment back in a sort of tax rebate. So 50% if it's SEIS and 30% if it's EIS, and also very attractive propositions. If you are successful in your business sales, you don't pay capital gains tax on the other end. So because of this tax incentive, you need to have SEIS or EIS because most investors in the UK are going to want that. And so, you know, you need to get assurance in advance that you're going to have.
So you can basically kind of write to HMRC, like fill out a couple of forms and then get a certificate to say that you are eligible for this tax relief. It's very easy. You can go online and
do it yourself. We at Female Founders Rise, we work with Founder Catalyst, who are amazing.
But definitely get that before you raise, because it just makes you more attractive, especially in the UK.
I was saying that to someone yesterday. She said, I'm ready to go out. And I said, have you got SEIS and EIS advanced assurance? Because that would be one of the things, you know, if a founder doesn't have that to me is like a massive red flag, because actually you should have your ducks in a row, you should have it all organised, because I want to know if I invest in you, I'm going to get my EIS.
Yeah, it shows you're organised, it shows you're prepared.
You're organised, and that was another big thing that came up yesterday on the panel, was the way that you conduct yourself as a founder from day one with your investors is telling them everything. So if they're having to chase you, or if you don't follow up, or if, you know, it's a pain getting their SEIS or EIS advanced assurance, that's just telling your investors, that's not green flags, basically.
100%. And then, so the second point in kind of the boring bits is know your numbers, in terms of know how much you're raising, know your valuation, know what you're going to spend the money on. Like, these are like questions that you shouldn't really be like umming and ahhing about, because again, that shows that you don't really know what you're spending the money on, why you're raising money. So make sure that is like crystal clear. And it's just even the way you, because I remember kind of, even though I knew it, I would say it in a bit of a like, you know, I'm raising 100K, like, you know, like, no. Instead of saying I'm raising £100,000 and I'm spending it on this, and this, it's just like your tone and your like delivery is really, really important. So yeah, confidence, I'd say as well, is really important. Like, you've got to say things with conviction, because you are just convincing that person that they should spend their money on you. So, you know,
and not their children or a holiday.
Exactly. So I'm sure, Emmy, when people come to you and pitch, like, it's really obvious maybe who feels confident, who you trust with your money, as opposed to someone who's a little bit like,
Yeah, I think it's all about the founder. So you're investing in the founder. It's early days. They may or may not have traction. They're going to pivot. We are going to talk, and we will talk about all those things in that podcast. So the pivot and the founder are the two key things. So I think being able to have a really confident conversation about your business, your plans, what happens if it goes wrong, but just to sort of really know what you're doing and have a really good grasp of the numbers and all of those things is so important.
Totally. And it doesn't mean everything's going to go right. Things will go wrong, but the investor will understand that they just need to know that you have a plan.
Yeah.
Step 3 is momentum, because momentum is key. So raising, especially with angel investors, could go on for quite a long time if you don't set yourself a deadline, because often it is rolling money. Because if you decide to raise via an ASA, which is like a convertible note or convertible debt, you can actually get the cash straight away. I actually forgot to say as well, that's another thing in the admin and legal step, is that you need to know how you raise, like what the round is. Are you raising debt? Are you raising equity? All of that kind of thing. So once you set the deadline, so you can be like, I'm going to raise in 3 months' time, just gives you accountability and urgency as well to know if you're hitting that deadline. And investors are like a bit like sales. You need a pipeline. Like you can't just keep knocking on someone's door every time the other person says no. You need like you need to be working on a big pool of people coming in. So at least you have like 10 calls that week out of 100 people that you've outreached. Because the moment that the pipeline is dry, then that's when you kind of start to panic.
Yeah, and I think the other thing is you're going to have to speak to loads and loads and loads and loads of investors to get a few convert. We talked about Melanie Perkins having 100 rejections. So if you think you've got to speak to a huge number of investors to get some conversions, you do need a pipeline, and you need there to be sort of constant. And also talking to those investors and saying, do you know anyone else that might be a good fit? If they say, look, I love what you're doing, it's amazing, but you're not quite the right fit for me, or I haven't quite got the budget, or you're not the right stage, you can always ask them for introductions, because they're very well connected a lot of the time. They're part of networks and collectives and things.
Exactly. So moving on to step 4 is actually, how did I find my angel investors? And this is probably the number one question that people ask. So I found our angel investors, we probably have like 15 in lots of different ways. So there was no one way, and I wouldn't say that one way worked more than the other. I would just say that we spread ourselves. We didn't put our eggs in just one basket. We tried loads of different ways. So some of those ways were founder referrals, because other founders obviously have investors and they can introduce you. So that's a warm intro.
I just got an email from one of my founders today introducing me to another founder. So that was really sweet. So I think sometimes they do that. Like they'll be like, well, I'll introduce you to some of my investors. Exactly. So that was actually an email, so they might do that. And also VC investors and angels like warm introductions from other founders.
That is good. That is a
we do know
warm
that the
one.
Founder network is so critical to entrepreneurs, and that came up in the RISE report. Like the most valuable support was actually being in those founder networks, and a lot of that is because of the introductions that you're going to get.
Exactly. Second was kind of cold emails and cold LinkedIn DMs. A lot of people don't like this approach, but I do think, like Emmy said, it's a numbers game, and it has worked for us. We probably got £300,000 from cold emails. I know, it's huge. I mean, one person who I cold LinkedIn DM'd invested 250,000.
So more than that, because you got the 75k from the bloke.
Exactly, more than that. So it does work. I think you just need to make sure it does come across personalised. A funny story actually is that I did do a mass email campaign, and when you put like brackets first name, and it's meant to take the first name from the spreadsheet and put it in, but there was some sort of glitch. So I sent 1,000 emails, I think, and it said to first name.
Oh my! Did anyone invest off the back of that?
So I had like some emails coming in saying, "How dare you?"
Terrible, yeah.
What clearly won't invest in you because you can't even get that right. And then a second, person saying, oh yeah, this sounds really interesting, clearly just like looked past it and thought, she's probably quite hacky and,
and actually thought, brilliant, you finding ways to connect with people.
So I had like loads of calls off the back of it and, pissed a couple of people off. But it was all fun.
But that's what happens in entrepreneurship. There's always going to be things that you do that don't work.
And you learn.
And you don't do it again.
So yeah, cold emails, cold DMs. I also used lots of tools for that.
What were you putting in the cold emails and the cold DMs?
It was very, very brief, but just a little bit about the business. I did attach the deck, but I said, talked a bit about why I thought that.
Were they personalised to them, or was it literally just a big,
I'd say not as personalised as I could, but it just did go out to more people that I didn't even know were angel investors. And I think that's the whole point, is that you don't even know if someone is an angel investor from their LinkedIn. And those are the people who probably don't even get asked. So I think that they were just quite happy that someone landed into their inbox and asked them if they wanted to invest. Another hack I have is hire someone from Fiverr.com who can actually find you the emails. So you can actually say, I want 100 emails from people in this sector who have mentioned that they're angel investors in their LinkedIn or whatever it is, and then they can actually send you a list. Don't know if that's actually legal.
What? Yeah, I think just emailing people randomly.
Yeah, or getting like their emails. But they are getting it publicly on like a website. Yeah. So clearly their emails are out there. The other thing is angel syndicates.
This is a big one, isn't it?
It is a big one.
And they're all slightly different. So I suppose you've got the angel collectives, the angel syndicates, and the angel groups and the angel networks, and they all might have different names, but essentially they are a collective of angels who either invest together or who share deal flow. So it works differently, doesn't it? So you've got, say, I'm part of Alma Angels, which is a big group of angel investors in, I think it's more than just the UK, who invest in female founded and co-founded businesses. And in that situation, the deal flow is shared within the group. Angels can bring in deals, but we don't invest as a collective. We invest separately. And then you have syndicates or collectives where a group of people within the collective invest, and they invest together in like a SPV. So they all come in together, they put their money in, and then they sit as one line on the cap table. So I'm in various SPVs with other investors.
Yeah, what are some names of?
So Ventures Together is one I'm in. I think there's
Southeast Angels,
Hermesa. I don't know, they all work differently, but it's worth, and actually in the playbook, we'll create a playbook for this episode. We will put a list of some of the angel collectives and how to find them.
I think one of the things that people are saying now is that they are acting a little bit more like VCs because they now have processes in place. You have to pitch, and again, the success rate is quite low because they are looking for high growth, high scale companies. So again, I'd say there's angel individual investors, there's angel syndicates and groups, and then there's VCs. So yeah, again,
I think there's benefits. So one of the great things is if you have someone who's really championing you in an angel collective, and potentially they get your deck and your opportunity out to a huge number of angels, and you might get a couple of grand from various of them, but then you've got those angels sitting on your cap table who are then your advocates and who are going to celebrate you and support you and hopefully open doors for you. So there's massive advantages to those angel collectives, but like you said, sometimes it's harder, and you haven't actually got a personal relationship with all the people who are investing, and you might not get as much.
And then the last one is LinkedIn, and obviously that's how I met Emmy. She saw a post on LinkedIn, so we actively said we were raising on LinkedIn, which a lot of people don't do that. So she saw it, then she DM'd me, and the rest is history.
I think I saw, so if I just say why I DM'd you as I was actively looking to invest, I think you had it in your title on LinkedIn, but I just saw that you were so passionate in your content about what you were doing. So you told me that I could see that there was a problem and I could see that you had the solution, and I believe that you were the domain experts, or that you had a really good understanding of that space. And I always say there's a lady called Liv, she did our personal branding challenge, she also did our fundraising accelerator, and she raised quite a lot of money, but 400k came off the back of her LinkedIn posting and her LinkedIn relationships. And she always says, the power of understanding that that's an amazing platform. There's a lot of people on there who are investing, or maybe who haven't invested, but if they get bought into your founder journey and you're bringing people along on the journey, then the minute that you say you're investing, that suddenly starts opening up loads of opportunities. So I would say massively it's such an untapped opportunity. And everyone who does our fundraising accelerator, I say, the minute you join, do a post on LinkedIn, even if you're just saying I've been accepted on the fundraising accelerator, then everyone knows you're fundraising, and then that's starting a conversation. And actually, if you can then keep that up and update people with what's happening, A, in your fundraise, but B, in your business, that's really pulling everyone along in the journey.
Totally. And I'd also say that it's actually the ones on LinkedIn that say they're an angel investor aren't an angel investor, or they have been, but they actually don't have any money. So it's so important to make sure that the person you're speaking to is actively investing and that they have money to invest, because otherwise you waste so much time.
How do you do that? How do you?
You just be like, are you actively investing right now?
Yeah.
That's probably what I'd say.
Yeah.
And they would say yes or no. But yeah, you can waste a lot of time with people who aren't. So again, LinkedIn doesn't give the whole picture in terms of who is investing and who isn't. So step 5 is hustle. We've said this before, but it is a numbers game. You're going to get rejected. Like, you need to kind of get used to rejection.
People won't reply to you either. It's not like, you just got to just keep going and, not take any of it personally. It's often nothing to do with the fact that you're a female founder. It's to do with the fact that they're not investing, or that they're not investing right now, or that, I get contacted all the time by blokes wanting me to invest in their business. I never reply to them because I don't invest in male founders. I invest in female founders. So, I think a lot of the time that's where the personalized, if you're going in with a personalised DM in someone's inbox, they probably are more likely to reply than if you're just sending a blanket one, which I know you said the blanket one sometimes.
I mean both, yeah.
But yesterday on the panel, one of the angels was saying if she gets a really well thought out DM and someone's done the research on her and she can't help them, she will do her best to introduce them to someone else.
Amazing. And protect your energy is really important, because it is going to be tiring. You're going to cry probably, it's going to be ups and downs. So finding the right people that you can talk to, that you can get support from. So for me, I have a co-founder who's also my best friend, and I was the only one raising because, again, she was the one running the business, because it is a full-time job. So it was great to just have her as my cheerleader, as someone I could vent to, as someone I could cry to. And so I definitely would recommend one founder kind of spending their energy on it, and then having a support team.
It's a full-time job.
It is exactly. And then finally, just celebrate the small wins. Like, even if you get an email back, if you get a coffee with someone, if someone says no, but they've said that they really liked hearing about your business, like, all of this is great stuff. Like, it doesn't matter.
And what I would say is, one of the things that we will talk about comes up in one of the other episodes with Emily around those long-term relationships. So just because someone doesn't invest right now, it doesn't mean they're not going to invest. So I actually just did one of my biggest investments in quite a while, in a company called Imagi. Now, I met the founder about a year ago because I did a strategy session with her when she was at Morgan Stanley Accelerator, and I thought, I love what she's doing. She then kind of kept in touch with me and kept telling me what she was doing, and I could just, see, this is moving in a really interesting way. She pivoted her business, and I was like, they're going to do really, really well. And then out of the blue, she just messaged me. She's like, Emmy, I really want you on my cap table.
Oh.
And I thought, that's really weird. I've been thinking about you, so actually I did make an investment. So I think the people that say no, or the people that aren't interested, that's not always a no forever. It might be that they just don't have that money at that time. So always keep those relationships good as well. Never burn a bridge, I'd say. Never be like annoyed with the angel or anything like that.
Unless they're,
Unless they're terrible.
Step 6 is set expectations. So we didn't raise all in one go. So when people say they've raised millions of pounds, this exciting thing, like it didn't just happen in one go. It wasn't like one easy ride. And actually, it's a little bit of an anticlimax because we raised in lots of, small rounds, and then it kind of together accumulated to a million pounds, and that kind of sounds, big and exciting. So I think with angel investment, it's often quite slow. It's often smaller rounds. It's often quite bitty. You sometimes are raising, just because you need a bit of cash for a certain project. And I also would just say, like, don't, compare yourself to what you're seeing on LinkedIn when all these people are saying that they've raised all this money, because often it actually isn't in one go, and it's just the way that they're
a lot of
marketing.
What's on LinkedIn are stories. Stories and behind the scenes is not what you're seeing on LinkedIn. I think that's one important thing. I think another thing to say is that we have already done an episode on this, which we can link back to, is why you took angel investment over VC, which is a really important topic. But today, amazing. We've got your playbook. We'll share that in the show notes. I've secured angel investment myself. I went on Dragon's Den. I haven't mentioned that yet. So one bit of advice that I would share is that when you're taking angel investment, you do have a responsibility to the founder, to the investor, to give them their money back. So that's on one side. But then on the other side, that investor does know that it's a high risk. So I think it's just, from a founder's perspective, there is some, you have got, I felt like quite a big responsibility on my shoulders, that I needed to return that money. And I don't think I'd necessarily realize I would feel like that at the beginning. But then on the other perspective, as an investor, I actually am fully aware that I'm investing in a high-risk business and I'm actually not expecting any return. But I think that's an interesting, it really got to me when I took angel investment that I was like, it's not just my business anymore. I think that's the other thing. It's not just your business. When it's just your business, you can do whatever the hell you like. Yeah. You can take as much holiday as you like. You can do anything. You've got no one who's going to turn around and say, hang on a minute, I just put 20 grand in your business and you're swanning around doing nothing. So there's definitely a responsibility.
Yeah, 100%. I think my biggest piece of advice that I would tell people raising angel investment is that being honest with your angel investors, because I think I used to think that I was kind of saying everything that I thought that they wanted to hear, but it's okay to not have everything sorted out. Like Emmy said, the investor knows it's a high risk business. They know you're figuring stuff out. So the more you can be honest with them, the more you can feel like you can go to them if something goes wrong, because things will go wrong. I just think that that's a good start of a relationship with an investor, because the moment that you are scared to tell your investor anything, then I think that
you lose the trust.
Yeah,
so I think the trust is a really important bit, and I think they're there to be with you on the journey, and they're there to support you, and use that as well. That's amazing. So thanks, Mae, for sharing your playbook. I mean, I was going to say let's think about the 3 takeaways, but you've given us 6.
Exactly.
And they're all going to be in the playbook, and it's such a so valuable and so good to understand how it works. And it is a bit of a process, and it can be a bit of a demoralizing process. It can be a bit of a long process, but really interesting. You do, most people get there in the end if angel investment's right for them.
Yeah, Exactly. And I did have a founder come up to me and say that she followed the playbook and she got all of her angel investment rounds. So I'm very proud.
So playbook will be in the resources. See you on the next episode.
See you next week.